don't know where things went left, but here's what she had to say.
Everyone involved has been made aware of this reality, and they haven't done anything to make it better. If anything, they've only antagonized me. I left that set hyperventilating and sobbing, and I knew it was so bad that I would never, ever be able to watch this film, which I worked on to make it a little better for us to be alive, is also the worst thing I've ever had to live through.
The ownership attorney has entered the chat. Tomi Adeyemi wrote Children of Blood and Bone. She co-wrote the screenplay and she served as executive producer. From recent statements in her videos, she left her own film set hyperventilating and sobbing and says she will never watch the finished movie. I won't speculate about exactly what happened because she didn't share those details. But from what she has shared, we know that she is unhappy and will not support the film. So we can infer this means that she can't control what she's unhappy about, and she has to stop supporting the film because she can't stop the film. But before we talk about law, let's talk about the reality of entertainment. A book and its film adaptation are very, 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 very rarely the same exact thing. We can go down a list of books where the storyline, the cast, the countless other things veered completely away from the original. And many authors were perturbed because of this. For example, Stephen King, he has written dozens of novels that have been adapted to the screen. He was so frustrated with how directors handled his stories that he decided that he was going to take matters into his own hands and start directing his stories himself. And he directed one of his stories himself. He received poor reviews and he never directed a feature film after that film again. He went back to writing and left filmmaking to filmmakers. Point being, film exaggerates, embellishes, elaborates on the actual story for entertainment. The question is not whether your story will change. It will. The question is what the contract says about how much and what you can do about the change when it does happen. So here are 3 lessons from this issue that actually matter legally for an author, creator, or entrepreneur licensing their work. Lesson number 1, a screenplay, credit, and a producer title are not the same thing as creative control. And the contract is the only place creative control actually lives. When an author grants literary rights for a film adaptation, a filmmaker does not automatically obtain absolute creative authority, but the author does not automatically keep it either. The division of creative control is entirely a matter of contract. So an author may negotiate to retain approval rights over casting, script changes, the final cut, or specific story elements, but only if those rights are written into the agreement before signing it. So here's the legal reality. A film adaptation is classified as derivative work, meaning a work based upon pre-existing work. And when you grant broad adaptation rights, the transferee or the production company, whoever's going to receive these rights, they receive all the protection and remedies of the copyright owner to the extent of that grant. That means they hold the exclusive rights to recast, transform, prepare a derivative version of the work, and you lose, or the rights holder can lose, the legal authority to stop them from altering their story, their characters, their themes. Co-writing the screenplay and sitting in the producer chair does not override any of that. If creative control is what matters to a rights holder, it must be defined, limited, and protected in the contract before they sign the contract. Lesson number 2, if a contract contains a no injunctive relief clause and the rights holder did not negotiate parameters around that, that means they gave up their right to stop the film and they will have to watch the film come to life. A no injunctive relief clause is a contractual waiver of a rights holder's right to seek a court order halting production or blocking a release. With it, a rights holder who believes that the adaptation violates the agreement can go to court and ask a judge to stop everything. But with this provision, that remedy is gone. They can be furious, they can feel violated, they can leave the set in tears, but they cannot get a judge to stop that film from hitting theaters. Finally, lesson number 3. A reservation of rights is how an author keeps everything that they did not sell. A reservation of rights is an explicit limitation written into the contract that says, I'm granting you this specific right, and I'm keeping everything else. You can sell the right to adapt your book into one feature film while expressly withholding the right to make sequels, prequels, stage plays, video games, merchandise lines, or any other derivative work. But without that language, a broad grant of adaptation rights can be read to include far more than what a right holder intended. The transferee will then hold the exclusive right to prepare derivative versions. And if the contract does not carve out what is actually kept, the courts will look at what the grant says, not what a right holder meant. Reservation of rights language is precise, and precision is what protects a right holder. So if they are unhappy with what has happened or the final outcome, at least if they have a reservation of rights, it can be a one and done. If you are an author, a creator, or an entrepreneur licensing any piece of intellectual property, the moment you sign that agreement is the moment your control is defined, not by how much you care about your work, but by what the contract says. Before you sign a licensing or adaptation agreement, you can book a legal consultation. We can go through what rights you are granting, what rights you are receiving, what you are keeping, and what leverage you still have before it's gone. The link is in the bio. Your story belongs to you until you sign it away. Own what you built all the way to the signature line. This is why I'm the ownership attorney.